This is the first of a new series of videos relating to making models in GMAX for trains, and this is the subject of the video. This is Great Southern and Western Railway loco number 90, which was built for the Irish standard gauge of 5'3", and I've modelled this in the past. The model came out in 2008 and really does show its age. So I'm in the process of updating it considerably and improving it. And so if we have a quick look at the original mesh in GMAX, this was the original loco, and there were so many things missing from it, and the colours and all the rest of it, that I've decided to completely redo the loco. And so this is where I am with number 90 at the moment. I just want to go back to this one and close it out because I don't need that. And you'll see that already that the livery is much improved. There's much more detail, and there's still more detail to come. This strange effect, by the way, on the texture is something I experienced in GMAX. When you zoom in, it disappears, but it's an artifact of GMAX, especially when it's handling a large number of polygons. So if we have a look at the number of polygons, well, we're just under the 10,000. The budget is 10,000. And what I normally do is, when I produce these models, I split them so that, for example, the frame and everything below the frame is in one section, the boiler and perhaps the tanks and the dome, chimney, etc. in another, and then the cab and everything else in the third if necessary. And that seems to be the most effective way of doing this, and Trainz, my version of it anyway, Tame, and Trainz 19 seems to handle that okay. I appreciate that it requires several graphic passes, but mine's a pretty middle of the road PC, so I think it suits most Trainz's equipment. Right, okay, so this is going to be number 90, and this is what I'm working on at the moment. But the reason for this video is because, this first video is because what I intend to do is to make another version of this, number 92 in fact. And if we have a look down here, here we are, here is number 92, and of course immediately you recognise that it has a carriage section attached to the rear, running on a, I'm assuming that is a separate pivoting bogie, like a carriage bogie. We've got there's very few photographs of this. Here's a slightly better one, though it's not the one I'm going to be using for making the model, though I will refer to it. And you can see the carriage section is nicely lined out. You can see it actually extends beyond the width of the cab of the loco, and it's got a higher roof, and that's not very obvious when you look at this photograph. So I've got to use whatever photographs I have to try and recreate this. I don't have any plans. I noticed that online there's some kits available of this, but again I can't find any scale plans, so I'm just going to have to work with these photographs. And you can see the wheels here appear to be very similar to carriage or freight van wheels, multi-spoke wheels, and they're slightly smaller than the driving wheels here. So I shall be looking at the size of those wheels in a plan I have of a Great Southern and Western freight van, and seeing if I can more or less manage to spoof it up from there. So let's go back to the model. So this is all fairly conventional. If you've followed any of my videos about making models for GMAX, I've not done anything really different here, and all I'm doing now is adding greater detail, and then I'll split that and export it into Trainz as number 90. The only thing I may do at the moment, I've got an image of the footplate, and I may convert that in, I may bring in a mesh for that. I'm not very clear. This appears to be a coal bunker here. It's not very clear from any of the photographs, and there may have been side bunkers above the wheel arch here for this is where the driving bogie is obviously a separate mesh from this. But you can see here number 90, I've still got the steps to do. All of these rivets which are marked on the plan I think are unnecessary, because if we look at the where are we? If we look at the number 90 here, then none of those rivets are particularly obvious, although some are more visible there, which I may bring in. Number 90, by the way, is preserved. It's at the Downpatrick Steam Railway, Downpatrick and County Down Steam Railway. Yeah, this is a photograph from Wikipedia showing her in the museum, and I've used this to give me details of the lining out, which is a beautiful job, and the correct type of number plate. When she was on a plinth after being withdrawn by CIE, there was a CIE plate on her, but I wanted to return her back to the original Great Southern and Western colours and appearance. There's some odd bits of equipment here which I'm not quite sure if they're relevant to the loco, but those are the sort of details which I've got to add. The handles there, the brake handles of course here, and at some stage I may be able to get down to Downpatrick to have a look at her, but there's some detail along here which I would certainly like to incorporate, and of course we've got springing there, and some feed from the boiler, back from the boiler, and steps. So there's quite a lot there to add into this initial model. But this video is about, not just about this loco, but it's especially about the process I'm going to use to model number 92 with the carriage section. So first of all, I created a plane, and I took that photograph, I reversed it out and took it into Gmax. I'm just going to hide that one, and you can see it's fairly pixelated. But the reason I use this one, if we go back to our photographs, this is the one that I've used, and this one is sharper, slightly sharpening, and because it's a slight 3/4 view, it gives more information about the curve of the carriage sides, that sort of thing. And but this one will give me almost a side-on view. So what I've tried to do is to bring that into Gmax and then position it. We try and correct the texture a bit. It does get pixelated, unfortunately, and essentially it's a question of moving it about until it more or less fits with the loco. You can see here that it doesn't at the moment, but I've got if I look at the plane, there we are, and you can see here that I've got, that's where it's mapped onto the plane. That's where the image is mapped onto the plane, so I'm in quite tight, almost at just about rail height here, and just about the height of the fittings on the gas lighting cylinder on the roof. So looking at the other photographs, it's clear that this isn't quite right in its position yet, and also you'll see there's a drop down here. That's because if I look back at this, that is at 657 and that is at 6.4, so there's a slight angle downwards towards this, although this is a horizontal line. So if you're thinking of working from a photograph, that's the aim of this set of videos, is to show you how I'm aiming to do it. So clearly, having seen that 3/4 view, the roof needs to go up a little. This is the roof of the locomotive though, you see, that's already in position. And if I was to stretch it a little more so as to try and get the chimney and the dome in position, then I'd need to pull it back this way as well, just to get the edge of the carriage moulding, which is about there. So this is to get the proportion right of the whole thing. Now the height of the chimney still is out there, but the dome's right, so I'm prepared to go with that. So unless I can find a scale drawing of this remarkable loco come rail bus come I don't know what, then I'm going to have to work with this. And as ever, my starting point, once I've got some sort of image in place, is to start with the wheels. I always tend to start with the wheels. So if we there's a cylinder here, and that is the approximate excuse me, radius, except I'm in the wrong position now. I should be at if it's a 1'7" radius, then the height needs to be 1'7". If I just move it about a bit, you can see it's 1'7". Perhaps I'm right. Looking at the Great Southern and Western freight vehicle, then it looks like this should be 1'8". In other words, 3 foot. 1'8". That's 3'4", isn't it? And just looking there at I'm just trying to judge this. Now that looks like it's been stretched, and this looks like it's been stretched in order to accommodate this here. So this will be a guide. It's not going to be a definitive size, but I will get the spirit of the vehicle. And looking at this image here, and then at the carriage here, then it's clear I've got to allow for, let's look again at it. Okay, so we've got that small, very decorative moulding at each end. Just want to make sure that that is the case here, that's what we're seeing. In fact, the join, I have to keep going back to these different ones. The join seems to be hard up against that moulding there, so I can actually adjust this a little further back, take this back a little bit, just to take it into position. There we are, and that's a more accurate. Now let's have a look at our wheel. The reason why I'm showing this as a video is because sometimes you just don't get plans of prototypes that you particularly want to build, and so I thought this would be a useful exercise to demonstrate how I go about making it from this. So there we are. I think that's about right in as far as position is concerned. So if we have a look at the perspective view, so I'll be working on this and using the radius of that 1'8". That's going to give me a 3'4" radius wheel, and I know from looking at this I just have to count up the spokes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, that's not going to help me, is it? Is it the same number of spokes as the locomotive? It looks like it is. So all I've got to do is remind myself of the bogey. Let's just save that. The bogey for the locomotive, and I'm using the same number of spokes on these wheels. So that's all for the moment, just to show you how I'm going to start making this model of this remarkable vehicle, and I'll follow it on with further videos as I build up the carriage. But I would really the carriage section. But I would really recommend, even if you are concerned or you've only got a very few photographs, images of a vehicle that you'd like to make, then do have a go, because you can capture the spirit of it. You may not be, you may be, some dimensions might not be exactly right, but you'll be close enough. And unless you can get a plan, of course, that would be marvellous to resolve those issues. So that's all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Short video, and there'll be part 2. I'll start blocking in the main shape of the carriage and trying to get the bogey sorted out, and I'll be referring to different photographs as I do that, as well as working from Gmax. So please subscribe if you haven't done so. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. If you have any queries or questions about making this model in Gmax, please do post them on YouTube and I'll aim to answer them.